I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 6, 2025 meeting of the Lake Zurich Village Board. Clerk Johnson, please call the roll.
Mayor Poynton,
Here.
Trustee Euchre,
Here.
Trustee Marks,
Here.
Trustee Riley,
Here.
Trustee Spicone,
Present.
Trustee Chagru,
Here.
Trustee Wider.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, nothing like starting the year off with a packed room. We don't usually have that, but welcome everyone. I hope the holidays were good for everybody. Next item on the agenda is the President's Report, and I'm going to turn that over to Kyle Cordell.
Thank you, Mayor. Everybody, Happy New Year. It's my honor tonight to announce that Lake Zurich has been designated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as a certified green power community. In July of 2023, Lake Zurich began providing the community a choice to either support clean, renewable energy or to stay with traditional fossil fuel-based energy. Earning federal recognition as a green power community means that our Lake Zurich Electricity Choice program is generating a ton of renewable energy credits. These credits directly support the growth of renewable energy, like wind, solar, hydro, much of which is being generated right here in the American Midwest. This Green Power Aggregation Choice program is just that. It's a choice, and no home or business is required to participate in it. But much of Lake Zurich has chosen to be in this green power program, and those that are can claim that their energy use is green and totally carbon neutral. This is common for a lot of companies aiming to meet sustainability goals or offset their carbon emissions. And so that's my honor to introduce a true energy expert, Ms. Ivy Klee from the U.S. EPA, who is here tonight to say a few more words on this community accomplishment. Thank you for joining us, Ivy.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Can I adjust this a little bit? Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Apologies to everyone that I'm facing the other way, but thank you for having me today, and thank you to Kyle for coordinating everything. My name is Ivy Klee. I'm with US EPA Region 5. I'm on a climate and energy team, and I am here today to talk a little bit about the Green Power Partnership Program. So the Green Power Partnership, or GPP, is one of EPA's longest-standing and most impactful climate protection programs, advancing the American market for renewable energy through voluntary green power use. GPP does this by partnering with organizations from Fortune 500 companies to community colleges to local governments who use green power voluntarily and report to EPA on their procurements. At the end of the calendar year 2022, nearly 700 EPA green power partners were using a total of nearly 95 billion kilowatt hours of green power annually, which is equivalent to the annual electricity use of nearly 8.8 million average American homes. The collective actions of EPA's green power partners and communities play an important role in increasing access to renewable energy and broadening market participation. This results in reductions in air emissions and pollution to help the agency meet its goal of protecting human health and the environment. I am pleased to present the designated road sign to the Village of Lake Zurich today for their participation in the Green Power Partnership. Local residents, businesses, and municipal operations have used 50.5 million kilowatt hours of green power annually between July of 2023 and August of 2024. This covers nearly 22% of the electricity use for the local community. That is equivalent to the power it would take to drive 136 million miles by electric car, or about 5,462 times around the planet. That is also equivalent to the power it would take to fully power 5,000 U.S. homes. Lake Zurich will join 110 GPP communities that were recognized for their commitment to green power in 2023. Congratulations. EPA's Green Power Partnership is just one of EPA's climate partnership programs. These partnerships are designed to transform markets by advancing clean energy and energy efficiency to help achieve broad emissions reductions. Our climate partnership programs have prevented more than 6 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions from entering our atmosphere, while helping American consumers and businesses save more than $500 billion. For every $1 of EPA investment, American individuals and businesses save over $350. Congratulations to the Village of Lake Zurich on this accomplishment, and thank you so much for having me today.
Did you say only 110 communities in the whole country have earned this?
Yes, from 2023. I don't have the 2024 numbers yet, but it's a great accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for the road signs. We're gonna put those up someplace, right? Where? Do
We
you
are.
know?
I think we're going to put one somewhere on Village Hall property and then outside the library. They had expressed putting one up.
Cool. Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Most of you haven't been here for public comment, so this is an opportunity for residents to comment briefly on matters included on the agenda and otherwise of interest to the Board of Trustees. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes in total and up to 5 minutes per speaker. When you step to the podium, if you haven't already done so, please sign in and identify yourself with your name and address. I'll take public comments from the sign-in sheet list in the order that folks signed in. So I'll start with the first one on the list is Mr. Craig Daniger.
Hello, everyone. Craig Daniger, address is 21975 North Mayfield Lane in Deer Park. Good to see you all again. So, as most of you know, for 5.5 years, I sat in those same chairs as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission myself up until very recently. I'm also a professional real estate developer myself, so I fully understand from both sides how important it is for a developer to enter into a community humbly and present projects that are of the quality and character that the community expects and demands, and make sure that the proposals are the highest and best use for the property, and basically are just being good neighbors to the community and to the residents and so on that are immediately adjacent to these properties. Here, though, today I'm here as a citizen of the Greater Lake Zurich community, and I'm here to express my opposition to the proposed development for the June Terrace mixed-use property, otherwise known as the Regal Cinema property, that you're going to be doing a courtesy review of later today. You would have received all yesterday an email from me with an opposition letter that was very detailed that we don't have time to go through today, but I'm going to try to hit just some highlights. It's structured, intended to be in an objective way and taking into consideration the same things that the village is expected to take into consideration and evaluating these types of proposals as well. And you'll notice that it was signed by 87 residents, which represent 45 properties that are immediately bordering and adjacent to the Regal Cinema property. So jumping into it, focusing on the rezoning first. So Rand Road is a zoned B3 corridor, commercial properties, and this is smack right in the middle of that corridor. Regal Cinema is the owner and operator of the property today, and it's not a dilapidated property. It hasn't been vacant for decades like the former Kmart property has been, and a rezoning feels very forced. It feels very irrational and just frankly without merit. And make no mistake, the proposed mixed-use development that you're going to be seeing here today is not mixed use. It has a single quick-serve commercial building in the front, presumably some sort of fast food restaurant, and then it's otherwise just a bunch of high-density apartment complexes. And that's just not the right location for that type of use. It's not near downtown. It's not pedestrian friendly. It's going to exacerbate traffic problems that already exist there right at June Terrace Road. We've all seen Starbucks back up into June Terrace Road. We've all tried to drive along June Terrace Road by Costco and make those turns and get to the traffic signal that's already a nightmare. And this is only going to make that worse. This is going to place tremendous stress on our school district as well. There's only so many resources and so much building space to go around, and 282 units is going to bring in a tremendous amount of schools and potentially hinder the quality of education of all of our children in this community today. Now, regardless of the use, the buildings that are proposed here are huge. They're intrusive. They're frankly a monstrosity for the residents that are just to the south there. These buildings are not just 3 stories tall. They're effectively more like 6 stories tall because of the grade change and differential between the residential property and the Regal Cinema property. They're also 225 feet long or so that's 3/4 of a football field long and only 35-foot setback from the property line. So imagine that huge building looking up, hovering over you in your own backyards. Now, not only does it not give any consideration for the residents that are adjacent to it, it also doesn't match precedent that the village has done a great job of requiring of developers. Lifetime is a perfect example. When I was on the Plan Commission, I was the first one to suggest that Lifetime reduce their building height from 3 stories down to 2 stories. And they in fact did that. And they moved the building as close to Rand Road as possible, creating nearly 600 feet of setback to the residential properties to the east, not 35 like they had proposed here. The Landings, an apartment complex that's in a perfectly situated location for that type of high density development because it's accessible to downtown and pedestrian friendly, they're still offering a 310-foot setback to their single family residents nearby. D&W Fine Pack, which is just next to the west of Regal Cinema, they have a 275-foot setback for their 1-story property. Now lastly, the proposal ignores community values as expressed by citizens of Lake Zurich as conducted by a poll that the village put out recently. And what do community members want? They want a small town feel. This high density development just puts that by the wayside. They want preservation of natural spaces. In this proposal, every square inch of developable area is turned into parking lots or buildings. And also, we have firsthand knowledge that there are 2 endangered species that live in the woods of that property, including the alligator turtle and the osprey. I already mentioned the community's desire of a continuation for great schools that may be in jeopardy. And what else do people want? They want more restaurants and more high quality entertainment options. And this proposal would do the exact opposite of that, actually taking away commercial property and turning it into apartment buildings. Lastly, water is of great concern for us residents who rely on good quality groundwater because we have wells that service our homes. And that's a concern of ours that we want to make sure is addressed in any development. And our neighborhood also already suffers from major flooding just from the existing developments that are there to the north of our neighborhood. And despite best efforts in engineering, you can imagine that this development will similarly exacerbate that problem as well. So in closing, we want to urge the board to also similarly oppose this proposed development and demand of any other developer who comes forward to provide the high quality and high character that the city and its residents have earned, frankly, throughout the years and have grown to expect, and hopefully ensure that the developers will have the decency to present a proposal to the community that respects the neighbors and the current stakeholders of the community at large. Thank you.
Krista Chowiak. I recognize some of the names here, so I'm going to try to keep the comments centered on the item. So,
my name is Krista Hoviak, 2 Newgate Court, Lake Zurich. I don't live near or behind the development, but I took a look at the plan that was presented in the packet. I also am opposed to it. It's not a good use of development for that land. It's overuse. It's a lot of apartments crammed into it. As the gentleman before me spoke, as far as traffic goes, there's 282 units at an average of, we'll say, 1.5 cars per unit. That's 423 additional cars going in and out of June Terrace. That's not made to handle that type of area. As far as the QSR goes, do we really need another fast food sandwich burger joint? Lake Zurich needs something other than high-end dining like we have a significant amount of and low-end fast food. We need something in the middle for the rest of us to eat or enjoy as a sit-down regular place. Also, I noticed that the dumpster location is clear in the back of the area. These people are going to have to haul their trash clear the length of the area to get into a dumpster. Those dumpsters don't look sufficiently large enough as geared on the plan. My daughter lives in a 17-unit condominium, and they fill their dumpsters in 1 day. So I don't know how big the dumpsters are going to have to be or how often they're going to have to empty them, but there's going to be a lot of truck traffic going in and out of there to empty those dumpsters. Also, I did not see any elevators presented in any of the floor plans, so it's presuming that all the handicapped accessible items or floor entry plans will have to be on the first floor. If they run out of first floors, then they can't accept any more handicapped people because there are no elevators to get people up to the higher floors. It's just not a good fit for the community. It's overpacked. not well thought out. It ticks the walkability that everybody wants, but I can't see everybody walking to Walmart or Costco and coming back with a shopping cart full of groceries. It's not the right place for this high-density development. Thank you.
George Michael.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is George McHale. It's pronounced wrong again. 879 Interlaken Drive. I'm not here, I didn't want to oppose the project. I just wanted to make an observation. As a frequent attendee of the mayor's coffee invitation, he tells us to make sure you check your benchmarks. It's always in the benchmarks. I read the benchmark, and I saw this Regal Cinema proposal. It's nowhere near Interlaken Drive, but as a former fire service personnel, I was a firefighter, I was a retired fire captain. I spent most of my career in fire prevention. The first thing that struck me, and you're going to have to look at your site plan when the people come up to make their presentation. Take a look at buildings 1 and 2 and ask yourself, how will anything, a fire truck, a delivery truck, a moving truck, a UPS truck, they'll be able to get into those 2 buildings, but they have to back out. There's no turnaround. And to me, I'm selfishly looking at it from the fire service, but for anybody else, that is just a dangerous situation that I don't think the Village of Lake Zurich wants to inherit. This desperately needs some type of a turnaround or circuitous driveway around the entire back of building 1 and 2. That's my comment. Thank you very much for the time.
My first name is Ronit. You can call me Ronnie. I live on 21946 North Farthingdale Court in Deer Park. And I think we can do so much better than this plan that's proposed. We can do so much better in terms of conservation of wildlife. We can do so much better in terms of quality of life in the area, in terms of making these buildings, making that area more characteristic of what Lake Zurich is, of what this area represents, of the nice, like Craig said, the smaller town feel. We can do so much better than this plan, truly. I think we live in a beautiful, quiet, peaceful neighborhood in Deer Park, which is definitely close to the area that's proposed. And the wildlife there, it's a quiet, it's a beautiful, it's a peaceful area. And while I understand that commercial buildings definitely that area should be purposed for commercial purposes, I think this residential area should not go through. I think it's like I said, it's uncharacteristic of the larger Lake Zurich area. I think it will be a large burden on our schools, having so many more children going to our schools. We are pretty much busting at the seams as it is in terms of class sizes. And yeah, we can do better. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Lang, 21962 North Farthingdale Court, Deer Park. My property borders the new development. And I just want to say I'm really concerned about storm management of water. Next to Tudor Time there, that's a wetlands area, and they'll find a way to offset that, but there's a lot of water there. My backyard is right near to Squires Pond 2 there, kind of right behind Tudor Time. That floods with some water back there. I'm about 15 feet from a flood zone on Squires Pond 2. And they'll run the development, they'll have a plan to manage that water, but over time as things settle, there's no way all the water's going that way because they've made it all concrete. So I'm really concerned that this new development, the way it's planned, is going to flood me out. So just please take that in consideration, and I'm not for what they have planned out. Thank you.
Not that I know of. I put my name at the beginning, and then Craig showed up, so I let him take my space, and then I wrote my name again at the bottom. Thank you.
I'll be a part of the presentation group. I was signing because I was speaking.
Okay. Hi, my name is Al Silcroft, 964 Manchester Road in Lake Zurich. And thank you for listening to me one more time. I was here at the courtesy review and also for the zoning application. And thank you to Sarosh and Colleen for coming out and taking a look at the site to address some of the concerns. I'm here to just voice some opposition to the Meadow Woods East development going right next door to my home. As a 35-year resident who purchased my lot and my home for its privacy, the increased density of the new proposed homes is very disappointing. I mean, I do understand that growth in the village is important, but the density is something that I'm objecting to. A major concern that I mentioned before was drainage. I know the village is aware of the issues and that there has been flooding in the area in the past, specifically in the Holly Circle area. For my lot specifically, there's a retaining wall that's about 4 feet tall that separates my home from the new development. And a concern that I have is that if this project is approved, that when trees are removed and final grading is done, now the wall isn't in great shape, but I'm concerned that it's going to be damaged and it's going to come down during the grading process. And we need the developer, if this is approved, to be responsible for ensuring that it's replaced or repaired. The entry that extends Manchester Road to the north, when the new road is cut in, because of the elevation change, there may be some kind of fortification needed, and I'll let the engineers decide what's correct, but I'm hoping that some kind of masonry fortification would be considered. Next, regarding privacy, I understand in reviewing the documents that some type of berm, conifers, and fencing are now a requirement for the developer. The current design will allow 2 to 3 new homes to have visibility directly into my living room and dining room, something that we're not happy about. If there is a fence that is put in, I'm asking that the material be some kind of composite for durability and not wood, and at least 6 feet tall. I saw that the time limit put on construction was 2 years, and living in a construction zone, and I know that once the road is cut through and development will continue north, it won't be as bad, but for at least 6 months to a year, there's going to be a lot of semis running back and forth. There's going to be a lot of construction dirt, you know, not only in my home, but in several homes across the street and directly to the south of me. So I'm hoping that our accommodations for a clean construction site would be considered by the village. So, and then one other thought, you know, some of the parkway trees are 8 inches in caliber. I'm hoping that if they are taken down and need to be replaced, that we don't have our, you know, 20 and 30-year-old trees that are replaced with 2-inch trees. So anyway, thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, Paul Pelchinski.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Paul Pelzinski, 969 Manchester Road, so right across from Al. I've been in all these meetings reviewing all the documents that come out, and every time some more details comes out, the devil's in the details, it gets worse for me. Because I now have a manhole where I have a tree. They'll be cutting into my driveway. They won't touch my lot was the first comment, but I know they're gonna be all over my lot, because they have to. And that's the reality of construction, I know that. So they just, whenever anything gets done, it needs to be beware of the residents. I will be mounting a camera, so we don't have to complain and do he says, she says. We'll just see it on the camera. So, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everybody's comments. One last chance. Is there anybody else that needs to chat, needs to talk, wants to comment? Okay, then we'll close public comment tonight, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. The titles on the consent agenda will be read by the clerk and approved by a single roll call vote. Any item may be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion or a separate vote by any member of the board. Clerk Johnson, would you please read the items, the titles? Sorry, titles.
6A, approval of minutes from the Village Board meeting of December 2nd, 2024. 6B, approval of executive session minutes from the Village Board meeting of November 18th, 2024. 6C, ratification of semi-monthly warrant register dated December 16th, 2024, totaling $1,060,336.21. 6D, approval of semi-monthly warrant register dated January 6, 2025, totaling $1,323,014.36. And 6E, agreement with Wind Trust Bank for municipal banking services.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Are there any board questions or discussion desired on any item, or would anyone like to have anything pulled for a separate vote? Nope. Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. May I have a second, please?
I'll second Euchre.
Okay, Kathleen, please call the roll.
Trustee Euchre.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Aye.
Trustee Riley.
Aye.
Trustee Spicone.
Aye.
Trustee Chagru.
Aye.
Trustee Weider.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to new business, we have 2 items in new business. The first one, Trustee Marks.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A, ordinance approving a planned unit development amendment to the official zoning map, special use permits and modifications to the zoning and land development code for Meadowwood East residential subdivision, assigned ordinance number 2025-01-600. In summary, applicants Mike, forgive my pronunciation if it's incorrect, Naumowitz, and Mr. Kirk Russman request approval to amend the planned unit development for the subdivision Meadowwood East, located to the north of Manchester Road. The subject property is currently subdivided and zoned for 9 single-family homes within the R4 residential district, which provides for 15,000 square foot lots. The applicants propose to re-subdivide the property to increase the number of lots from 9 to 15 and to rezone within the R5 single-family residential district to provide for smaller lot sizes of 10,000 square feet. At their October 16th, 2024 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the PUD amendment and accompanying development concept plan, subject to several conditions. The proposed ordinance proposed ordinance includes requirements for improved stormwater management to comply with current standards, additional landscape buffering, and a 2-year window to complete all site improvements, and a detailed development agreement to accompany the final plat and final plan.
Okay, thank you. Sarosh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. This evening, we have Mr. Kirk Russman representing the applicants here to make a brief presentation and answer any questions of the village board. Mr. Russman, if you'd like to come to the front.
Thank you. Thank you, Board.
The presentation will come up from the back, yeah.
And before you get started, you heard a couple of comments. You can address those as you go through.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I met with both neighbors, and we obviously want to be neighbor-friendly. We will be.
Okay.
Mr. Russman, can you speak into the microphone? This is also
I'm
being
sorry.
broadcast. Yes, yeah. Either one would be fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. So, yeah, so we've met with them, and yes, we want to be good neighbors, and we'll be sweeping the streets. In fact, we're repaving the streets, Manchester all the way out to Miller, after our construction is done. So
Okay.
any damage, we're taking care of that, so.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the development here. It's gonna be all single-family homes. We're just asking to have a little bit more density in here. It's all gonna be, hardy board and stone embellishments, very similar to the Manchester area, except with more common updated materials. There's a comment that Al made on his property, and we'll work with him. We show on this here a fence down along oops. How's the pointer work? Well, down along the fence there on the backyards there, we show a fence, but we're certainly open to working with the neighbors, whether that's a arborvitae fence or wood fence, composite fence, we're open to that.
So where's Al's house in relation to that picture?
I don't know how to work the pointer, but
Bottom, left on the
Okay.
bottom? Okay, I got it.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
right here, that's Al's house here.
Okay.
And this is the fence we're showing here, okay? So,
Well, that's a nifty toy you got there.
and there was a comment made on, the grade change and, as the new road is cut in, obviously that's being worked out with the final engineering. In my opinion, we're gonna have some minor, masonry retaining wall right down at the bottom there. So, but that's on the final engineering. As far as water management, we've actually increased from the original approved plan. With this plan, we've increased our stormwater to current standards. So we have 2 detention pond areas that are engineered to handle the stormwater situation. We actually have engineered a small swale to take along the fence line to direct surface water back to the detention area, so. Any questions?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I'm gonna open it up to the board. Anybody on the board have any questions for Kirk?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
Mr. Russman, nice to see you. Thanks for coming back. First of all, I'd just like to voice my appreciation for your attention to the stormwater management issue with that property. That was one of my original concerns. It still remains a concern, but probably not at the level that it originally did. So I appreciate your attention to those details. When you were here for the courtesy review, I think I said to you that I would, when you came back, that I would be asking you what the benefit to the residents of Lake Zurich would be for a change in the zoning here to go from basically nine home property, 1,500 square foot lots, to 15 homes in a relatively small area and 10,000 square foot lots. I wanted to make sure that I gave you the opportunity to answer that question since I told you I was going to ask it.
Yes, well, thank you. So, well, the completion, I call it, of this subdivision allows for, better use of truck turnarounds, better use of delivery trucks to be able to actually turn around and leave, service not only the existing Manchester area, but the new development as well. This project here is, obviously is substantially different than the original because of the stormwater management requirements and utility access requirements that the village now has, which we've all incorporated all that into our site plan. So as far as, benefits, obviously benefits are because your wetlands are going to be much more better maintained. We're following current stormwater standards. We're following, current codes, your energy codes. You're using less energy. The old subdivision was approved 20 years ago. So everything about this subdivision, the quality of the building, the insulation in the building, the energy efficiency of the lighting fixtures, everything about it is better in my mind than what we had in the past. So those are all benefits to the community as well as Lake Zurich as a whole.
Okay, well, thank you. I would add that the density is also increased. But yes, I appreciate your attention to the details. I appreciate your company while you're doing the site plan to upgrade 20-year-old standards to more modern standards. I will say that, and I want to give you my reasons. I'm not going to be voting for this evening, but I wanted to give you my reasons. With that, I also want to say thank you for reaching out to the neighbors. I think that's any development that goes on in Lake Zurich. I think that's an important component. But for me, this is not a housing project. We had a picture of houses, but really, you're not proposing houses tonight. You're proposing home sites, correct? And for me, it's not an extension of the current subdivision, but it's its own separate subdivision. While the lots, should the zoning change shrink to the size of many of the lots in that particular subdivision, the home sizes will be bigger, or at least that's the plan. The reality is we don't really know because these sites are going to be developed and they're going to be for sale on the open market, and people are going to have an opportunity to build whatever they would like to build with the property that they purchased, which is God bless America. That's a great thing. But I don't know that there's going to be any continuity to the current subdivision. I also don't know if those lots are going to sit vacant for 1 month or they're going to sit vacant for 65 months. We've had a number of developments here in the village of Lake Zurich, and they're not exactly apples and oranges. But just up the street off of Miller and Briarwood is a development that's sat vacant for, 4 years. We've got some construction going on at Honey Lake Road that took quite some time to get started and is still in the process of being completed. So I'm concerned with, if it was a housing project with a beginning and an end, I might feel a little more comfortable with that. But there seems to be a lot of open-ended, unanswered questions, and I'm just not comfortable with that this evening. So I wanted to let you know where I stood.
Can I?
You sure can.
Okay, fine. So we have reached out to, preliminary based on where we're at in the process here. So to address that concern that, it's going to be sitting there for 65 months, no way. I've reached out to custom home builders to say, hey, there's an activity here. I've got an opportunity. Are you interested in a few lots? And there's very strong interest right now to develop all those lots. So I don't, unless there's a major change in the market, which I can't, foresee or forecast, but based on the feedback that I'm getting now, no problem getting this done very, very quickly.
Okay. Well, and if it does move forward, I very much hope that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? No? Nobody else?
Yeah.
Roger?
Can you pull up that slide before and show the additional? So you just shrunk, you used the same area, but just shrunk them and added more houses. Is that basically?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so no change in that, just more houses.
No, basically the street is the same, similar double cul-de-sac situation. We had to change the road a little bit because to accommodate the different lots and the stormwater passages, the easements and things in there that we had to incorporate. So it changed a little bit, but very, very similar to the original design, yes. Mostly all walkout basements. We didn't change that. Same thing.
Thanks.
Okay, nobody else?
I got one more.
Jake?
So on the basis of the dialogue between you and Greg, is there any reason why, like, the concerns of the public are this is going to have an outsized impact on me, the timeline is uncertain. I'm kind of on the same page as Greg. Like, I don't think it's fair to give these people an ambiguous timeline of like, this may happen. Is there a reason why you couldn't just come back with the associated housing developer in conjunction to say, we'll be done in 2 years, we'll be done in 2.5 years, 3? Because I think the open-ended aspect is what's really giving people a lot of pause and anxiety. And while your affirmation that you have people you're in dialogue with, that's pretty ambiguous to the people listening. So if you were, right now I'm a no, but if you were to come back with the assurance that you have somebody that's going to build on the enhanced property, I think that would go a long way to changing some minds.
Yeah, and we are absolutely willing in the final decision here going forward, if there's a timeline or something that you want to put in the ordinance, we would absolutely be open to that as long as it's reasonable. You know, we have to decide what it is, but again, I'm very, very confident that we are not going to have this open for a long period of time. So, you know, what that means for 15 houses, you know, might be 2 years tops. I would say, you know, once we can get a building permit, I can't start the first lot until we get the streets and everything in and approved. You know, that may take, whatever, we have 2 years in the ordinance, but it won't take 2 years to put the road in. And then once I get my first building permit, you know, 2 years would be reasonable given the current market conditions to get that completed.
Okay.
We have a suggestion.
If we're at the point that we are prepared to address the motion, can I suggest if timing of the completion of the development remains a large enough concern for the whole body? The ordinance provides for the completion of a development agreement along with the ordinance. It doesn't currently contain a timing provision, but if you, the developer, are comfortable with agreeing to a reasonable time frame for the completion of the entire subdivision, we'd like to make that part of the motion, that the completion of the development agreement will include a timeline to be included by village staff that will come back to the village board.
Yep. Yes.
Okay?
That's a suggestion.
That's a suggestion.
So what about, I'm in agreement with you, Greg. I'm a little bit concerned about the if-come component of selling lots versus having a developer come in with lots already worked up. So would it be possible to table this approval until you get the builder on board to build the lots? Because if you get a no vote tonight, what are the implications of a no vote?
Well, the
Yeah, I mean, a no vote means that you have to wait 2 years before you can come back, right?
well, the immediate implication is that the 9 existing platted lots would still be open-ended and available to be built on. That would be the most immediate impact of a no vote on this recommendation.
But if he has the confidence that he's got somebody lined up and he can bring it back relatively quickly, the tabling of this could be of short duration. And then you might have a more positive vote. I'm looking for some advice here.
I will say, I mean, looking at the board right now, it's not looking too favorable. You've already heard 2 no's. It only takes 1 more, and that's it.
Right.
So I would highly recommend listening to the mayor on this one.
We have your pretty pictures, and that's great, but the new builder comes in, these pictures may not mean anything to him, so.
One struggle to think about, though, is your intention's not to work with one builder, though, right?
That was my original intention,
So
absolutely.
maybe, also to Greg's point too, if there is, more singularity around the builder to provide continuity within the neighborhood, I think that would also go well. So just a consideration. I know what we're asking for here is tough because it's opposite of the business model in which you presented to us today. But between the density and the lack of timeline and the continuity amongst the community, or amongst that immediate community, I think it's something to at least pull back for a moment, rethink.
I agree. I mean, I obviously would like everyone to, be happy with the subdivision, happy with the process. We just suggested that lots were the way to go. I still think lots are the way to go, but hearing from the board, I appreciate your concerns about length of time. So, yeah, we can table it, and I'll bring in the other developers with me next time, and we can all present perhaps a schedule to you as an example schedule for construction based on what we see, and that might help. It seems to be the major point that people are worried about. So.
Before we close, I do want to say I appreciate, I know since the courtesy review through Planning and Zoning Commission, and then even tonight, you've been listening to the residents. I'd say also a benefit that you probably missed out, or had an opportunity to bring up again, but the resurfacing of Manchester that's a significant benefit to the community as well. So I do appreciate the efforts that you've taken thus far.
Okay. All right.
I have a suggestion here to continue this to the February 3rd meeting to see if you can solidify the builder. I'd hate to see you walk away. Right now, you got a 9-unit subdivision. If you get a no, then
Building 9 houses.
yeah,
right.
If that would be okay with you, I mean, but you want 15, so.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we continue this to the February 3rd meeting?
Okay.
In the meantime, you got another month to find a builder.
Got it.
So do we
Is
need
that
a
fair?
motion? to do
Fair. Thank you.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so then I'm gonna make a motion to continue this item to the February 3rd meeting for refinement by the petitioner. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second Whiter.
Whiter seconds, and Kathleen, would you call the roll, please?
Have you written down this new motion for me, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Marks?
Aye.
Trustee Riley?
Aye.
Trustee Spacone?
Aye.
Trustee Chagru?
Aye.
Trustee Wider?
Aye.
Trustee Euchre? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're continued to the February 3rd meeting. That shouldn't be that much of a delay. Pretty much, so, yeah, good luck. Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
People talk to our people.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Trustee Marks again.
I feel like you're razzing me a little bit, making me read so much, but I'll go ahead and do it.
I've got a weak throat here tonight. So.
Cheering a little too hard
Yeah.
for a loss to the Pats.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no worries. Item B, courtesy review for proposed mixed-use development at Regal Cinema property at June Terrace and Rand Road. In summary, MJK Real Estate Holding Company and Continental Properties Company propose a mixed-use development on the 20-acre site at 755 South Rand Road, commonly referred to as the Regal Cinema property. The proposed development includes 282 rental units ranging in size from studio apartments to three-bedroom units, as well as a 4,000 square foot quick-service restaurant with indoor and outdoor seating. The proposal includes a clubhouse with a 24-hour fitness center, a resident lounge, and a leasing office. Resident amenities include swimming pool, pet park, 24-hour maintenance, and a dedicated on-site team. Representatives from both firms are offering initial concept plans for Village Board comment at this time as a non-voting item.
Michael.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we have a team assembled comprised of Mr. Richard Silverman. He's the manager at MJK. We have Mr. Eric Hahn, Vice President of Acquisitions for Continental Properties, and he's also joined by Bridget Wiesler this evening. We also have Javier Milan, traffic engineer from KLOA. If you would like to...
Okay, gentlemen.
Meander to the podium, we'll bring up your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Hahn, as Michael mentioned, with Continental Properties, here with Ricky Silverman and Bridget Wiesler, as well as Javier Milan from KLOA. So appreciate your time this evening. I know we've been working through the holidays. Hopefully everyone is doing well in the new year here. So,
and just to repeat what I said to the first fellow who came up, if you would take into consideration what the community said.
Sure.
And as best you can at this point.
Yeah, we have a brief presentation prepared. Do you mind if we run through that and then address some of the concerns?
And just so the audience knows, this is a non-voting issue. This is a courtesy review. We will not be voting on this tonight.
So I'll provide some quick background on who Continental is. I think some of you know Ricky from MJK. A little bit of context. Regal had been marketing this property somewhat quietly for many months. As far as we know, there were several suitors. They had negotiated with different parties since August of last year now. We came forward with a proposal that met their needs. We have an exclusive agreement with them to purchase the property. We're working through that now, working towards beginning due diligence, which will be comprised of survey, environmental review, including wetland phase 1, endangered species review. We haven't started that yet. We have an exclusive letter of intent until we complete the purchase agreement, which has been ongoing since December 23rd. So with that, I'd like to also introduce Ricky, if he could come up to the mic, and we'll kind of give a quick background on each of our firms.
Mayor, Village Board members, Ricky Silverman, MJK Real Estate. I recently stood in front of Village staff and the board a few months ago, in May of 23. I am the owner of 880 South Rand Road, the future 7 Brew coffee shop that will be opening here at the end of the month. January 20th is the target. I am a third-generation real estate developer. We are out of Northfield, Illinois. We focus on outlets to shopping centers, mostly food uses, quick service restaurants, sit-down restaurants is our focus. We are a family-owned company. We have no outside investors, and we focus on projects long-term and get them done. We are here tonight in a joint venture with Continental. We have recently worked together in completing a project in Lockport, Illinois, a 26-unit or a 26-acre mixed-unit development. Continental is building 330 units and 320 in Lockport. I have 6.5 acres of retail outlet development, from food use to sit-down use. So we have a track record of starting projects, getting them approved, zoned appropriately, entitled appropriately, and getting them out of the ground. Our second project we are working on together is in Aurora. We purchased a Meyer tract of land they never built on. We're working on a 200-plus unit development there that is in front of Village Board now, with another fast casual restaurant in the outlet. Our development background in MJK is 28 years of family development experience, 35 properties built, developed, and still managed and owned to this day, and about 250,000 square feet of retail space. What led me to this outlot, or what led me to the Regal Cinema, was when I was under contract for 880 South Rand Road, the future 7 Brew Coffee. We had a line of suitors that wanted to open businesses in Lake Zurich, sit-down restaurants, quick casual restaurants, and unfortunately the site I was working on was just too small. It's 0.65 acres. So I started looking for a larger development site for some more fast casual users, and it is a densely populated retail corridor along Rand Road, running north-south there. So we identified the Regal Shopping Center to pursue it. The site is far too big for retail alone. The economics are too great to overcome, and 23 acres of retail development is just not feasible at this point. That led us to a group conversation with Continental about interest in entering the market, and this is how we got to where we are right now with negotiations of the exclusive contract with Regal. We think these courtesy reviews are completely beneficial for the developer to meet with village staff, village board, to meet with the residents and hear what the residents are interested in, what they're opposed, so we can collaborate on a project that's great for the community, everyone in Lake Zurich, as well as the development group. Because Regal Cinemas, movie theaters are not going to be around in the long-term future, and we want to find a good mixed-use development that can get started here quickly in the fall of next year.
So I'll spend a little more time on Continental's background in case, I'm assuming many of you may not have heard of our firm before. We're based in metropolitan Milwaukee. We've been working here in the Chicago suburbs for a long time. In fact, we were a retail developer before we pivoted most of our business model to multifamily apartment rentals. We built the Marianos in Bannockburn, the Marianos in Crystal Lake, Home Depot in Elgin many, many years ago, as we were a big box developer until the GFC. Since 2008, we pivoted most of our business to multifamily, starting in the Southeast in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. We entered the Chicago market in 2012 and have developed a number of communities in this metro as our largest portfolio market since 2012, about 12 years ago. So a bit more background here, if I can get to our map. This is a map of our locations across Chicagoland. I'd say the closest completed community to Lake Zurich is in Crystal Lake. It's adjacent to the Walmart on Route 31, north of the Walmart there. We're currently under construction on 147 units on Butterfield Road in Mundelein. We have our clubhouse constructed, our first building coming out of the ground. We broke ground on that this fall. Additionally, we have 254 units we're building in Deerfield in the Deerbrook Shopping Center adjacent to the Edens. That's under construction now. We're preparing to lay our first foundation and go vertical towards the spring. So this is our completed communities, over the last 12 years. Beyond that, our experience to date, we're a top 25 national developer in terms of what we do each year in terms of volume by the National Multi-Housing Council. Additionally, we recently won an award for our Springs at St. Charles community, which is approaching stabilization this year. This is a rendering of our Deerfield development, which would be very similar in terms of the building massing to what we're proposing, with clubhouse, an amenity center, 3-story buildings with some direct access ground floor units, courtyards, ample parking, pet playgrounds, and the like. We'll get into a bit more on that. So I think you're all familiar with the location. Ricky didn't mention this. Our understanding from Regal is they're not sure how much longer they're going to operate because they would need to make a significant investment in that theater to bring it up to current with reclining lounge seats. There's just a lot of work there, so that's one of the reasons that they determined they were willing to dispose of this asset, along with other. It's one of the few assets that Regal owns outright rather than with a lease. So based on our progress thus far, they're happy with our execution on this, and this is a key first step to determine how to reutilize this commercial property.
So is a redo of the theater still a possibility?
They indicated that this Chicago market is one of their least favorable for theater use. They don't see the same amount of theater goers as they do in other markets. They're based in Tennessee, as you guys may know. And they indicated that they may not be able to keep it open maybe for another year. So it didn't sound like it was economically feasible for them to continue to operate. I think they would like to see something happen before year end, which is our intent with this time.
Well, they haven't done much to it in many, many years, so.
They, in our calls and conversations with them, is they're exiting the Chicago market. It has nothing to do with Lake Zurich. That current theater does have significant deferred maintenance, north of $6 million, closer to $8 million, from roofs, HVACs. It's currently a 14 theater screen. Theaters now are typically 6 theater screens. So our conversations of trying to get control of the property, we're putting our heads together and to appease Regal in a challenging negotiation was we tried to keep the theater there at a point and do a development, more mixed use around it. And they have, it's not about economics, it's about closing down the shop. It's just not favorable.
I don't see a lot of new theaters being built anyways, right?
New theaters are not being built, and the ones that are closing are challenging to backfill with other theaters at this point.
Okay, thanks.
So to continue with what Ricky said, they've gone through their UK-based Cinemark committee and approved us to move forward with this. So we'll spend a couple moments on the site plan and circle back to address some of the resident comments. So this plan is comprised of 282 apartment homes across 8 residential buildings. The building heights are 42.5 feet to ridge. This includes our largest clubhouse offering to compete with the nearest competitive apartment property with resort-style pool, resident lounge, 24-hour access, and to those amenities, the pet playgrounds, as I mentioned, and then also we have the restaurant use with dual drive-throughs, 6,000 square feet patio space. We put some information in the package for you all to review in terms of what's anticipated there, all circulating from June Terrace. Providing a little background on the multifamily overview, as Michael mentioned, we're planning to offer studio through 3-bedroom homes. Continental manages all of our portfolio communities, so it's our colleagues working at the communities across the metro here. So we don't third-party manage. We have typically staffed these with 5 personnel, so property manager, full-time maintenance person, part-time leasing associate, part-time leasing agent, and then a part-time maintenance tech. And they're all, the maintenance folks are available 24 hours. This would include Continental's brand promise, which means that a person can break their lease within the 30 days for any reason, as long as they tell us why they're breaking their lease. It's our commitment to quality in terms of our offering, because our customer service is what is one reason we stand apart from our competitors. So the in-home features, we have 9-foot ceilings. We'll have upgraded offerings with different fixture package and plumbing package, energy efficient appliances, granite counters, high-end cabinet package. We're doing luxury vinyl plank flooring in these units. The ground floor units will have their own individual private entries, and select apartment homes will have balconies or patios. Mentioned the amenities already. This is a photo of our clubhouse from North Aurora. This is the first location we built this clubhouse and pool that's close to 5,000 square feet. Includes the fitness center that's open 24 hours with roll-up garage door for the summer months. The photo on the lower right is our resident lounge that's also open 24 hours. That part is available for private parties if they want to reserve the space on the weekend. Next, I'll get into some of the market overview. So, not sure if you guys have seen apartment development across Chicagoland, but with some of the challenges with interest rates, new inventory growth is down significantly. We're one of maybe 3 multifamily developers in the Chicago market that are building. I think maybe only Focused Development is building new communities as of last year. And that's part of the reason why is because Continental has a very strong balance sheet and an excellent track record in development and operation. So as part of that, the inventory is very limited. We're seeing high occupancies across our portfolio in the 96 to 98 percentile. Multifamily permitting this year is down 9% from the peak last year. We're expecting demand to remain steady. Chicago is one of the only markets that has had positive rent growth based on softening demand nationally. So it is our best market today, and it's our best portfolio market to do business for the long term as well. So we believe this location hasn't seen new apartment development in a very long time. Everyone is either heading to Crystal Lake or Kenosha, for instance, where we've built. And this is an area that deserves a new type of housing that hasn't been built in so long. The drive time from the nearest comps is about 23 minutes. The average commute is about 28 minutes. So you can see why there's likely strong demand for this type of housing to serve empty nesters and young professionals in the area. Customer profile, we included some information on resident demographics across the Springs communities that we offer. Our residents have a median household income of $103,000 on average across those communities. We provided a chart here and we update this information at time of lease signing. We've been collecting it for 12 years, so we know who our residents are. Over half of our residents earn over $100,000 a year, as you can see from the chart at the right. So very affluent apartment residents compared to some other locations. Most of our residents are young professionals, 20 to 34. The other largest cohort is age 50 and up. That's 22% of our residents at any community on average. Only 10% are school-age children. That varies from location to location, depending. We've seen 10 to 15%. So we're estimating 48 to maybe high 50s in terms of the number of school-age kids associated with 282 apartment homes. Many of our residents have pets rather than kids. So 40% of our residents have pets, which is why we offer the pet playgrounds versus a tot lot or something like that.
So can I stop you there for a second? When you said 10% school-age kids, what is if this was to be fleshed out totally, how many people would you anticipate living there?
Altogether, we would expect 470 total residents.
So you're saying 470, so 10% kids, that's 47 kids.
We're figuring probably 40 to 55. So okay. The highest percentage
I get it.
Is Oswego has our highest percentage of school-age children is at Romeoville with 12.45 approximately. Okay. And so that's been pretty static. The village's population equivalency for school dedication is pretty accurate, we found. Okay. So we would use that for school contribution to cover the impact. Rental range, based on housing prices in this vicinity, we would see starting rents at about $1,820 for a 550 square foot studio, or ranging all the way up to $2,950 for our largest 3-bedroom, about $2.36 a foot, and that's based on the market research we completed recently, based on current market conditions. Here's a few samples of our studio 1, 2, and 3-bedroom floor plans. Covered most of our management information. We're ranked 39th out of 100 of the largest apartment management companies in the country. 6 of our portfolio communities are in the top 1% per J. Turner. We have 18 communities that are top rated in Wisconsin and Illinois based on our portfolio work here at apartmentratings.com. I've covered most of this other information. Our screening criteria, we require our residents to prove out 3 times their rent with their income each month, subject to credit check, background check, full referral check, no felonies. So that's kind of the broad synopsis on how we vet our residents. Clubhouse, we shared this with you, so I will be honest with you all. The clubhouse and elevations are a work in progress if the board is supportive of this proposal and us continuing on with modifications. So we'd expect to alter these elevations with multiple masonry siding, brick or stone. I guess we just have to determine how that best fits in the context of Lake Zurich and the surrounding commercial properties. So next we have the building elevations. These are more or less a massing study. We've been revising these since we met with staff last month to add additional gables. We're trying to determine what other architectural details we'd like to add, whether that's brackets for some of the roof overhangs. This reflects both lap siding and board and batten, cementitious hardy board siding, in addition to first floor masonry, in this case, brick. Here's a rendered version of what we'd expect. Now, this is something that through the holidays we would continue to flesh this out and add more to this as we move along if the board is supportive. You can see the railings here with balconies and the shed roofs where we could add brackets or other architectural interest. Again, a rendering of the pool area in this case. So I think I'll address a few of the other questions, but in closing, what are the benefits to the village? I guess first and foremost, between our firms, this would be about an $80 million investment in the village. We've also provided some information on job creation. So this is from the weareapartments.org. It will calculate the number of jobs created by this apartment use in this metro. Potentially that will support up to 615 jobs for 282 apartment units. We would expect the QSR use to generate between 24 and 40 jobs here locally. We have the 5 continental positions. If we were to reach approval here, that would work for our firm. That would reflect a total economic impact of this overall development of approximately $133 million, aside from the QSR use, the multifamily alone. And again, it would offer a housing option for empty nesters here or young professionals, where there are pretty limited options for that type of housing. So that's the end of our formal presentation. I'll go back to address some of the comments that we've heard so far tonight, which has been really helpful. I think the first that we heard is related to the site plan. Realize that for life safety, we probably have to reconsider both the adjacency of buildings 1 and 2 and possibly 8 to the southerly property line. Considering the mass of these buildings and the elevation change, that's one thing we've made note of so far that we'll need to address. Additionally, I think we received a comment on the endangered species. We need to conduct a review with our environmental in the coming months to determine if that habitat exists or not. The schools, we've discussed that. In our view, my understanding is the school district here is not at capacity as it stands, so we'll have to further review that and discuss with the school district if given the nod to proceed. The trash compactor, we manage our own trash haul-off. So it's a 30-yard container, haul-off container. It's picked up twice a week or as much as we need it. We manage our own trash removal. In terms of the residents, we require valet trash. So our maintenance folks pick up their trash from outside their door each night and drop it off in the refuse container, because we've had issues with cleanliness of our residents, so we take that on for a small monthly fee. Building height, I've discussed it's less than 50 feet in height. I'm not sure exactly what the B2 district allows, but I would presume it's more than that, possibly. The other item is stormwater. So stormwater and traffic are the two primary items that we need to address. We have been reviewing the stormwater requirements with Lake County, because the stormwater will be subject to local, county and state requirements. So things have changed since 1992 when this was built. So Lake County has something called Bulletin 75, which requires an additional 2 inches of rainfall to be accounted for in the stormwater system. So we've engaged with Cage Engineering to review that. We're planning on about 7 acre-feet of underground storage below the parking areas, which is, we built 12 acre-feet of underground in Lockport and storm trap style vaults. So we'll need to account for that, as well as any remaining capacity in the existing stormwater management areas, which were on the plat from 1992. They were actually dug as detention ponds back then. We may see them to be wetlands now, but they were in fact designed as basins to reserve stormwater capacity for this development. I believe those are all the other questions that I heard, unless you heard any additional, Bridget. So I think we're on to questions.
Okay, let me start with the board and see if there's any questions from the board. Huh? Mark wants to go first. Mark's
all right. Thank you. Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. It was very informative. So a couple of things. My thoughts, okay, unsolicited from anyone else. I don't necessarily have a problem with putting in a development of residential on that side. With that being said, the density is overwhelming. I think it's a lot of buildings for a tight space, and I get it. Let's ask for the world, and then we'll pull back, right? And that's what this comes from. So I think the density is really overwhelming, especially with the egress going onto Rand Road and in June Terrace. The traffic concerns, and that was one thing that came up that you weren't able to address, but I want you to be able to address that at some point. So the traffic really is going to be a concern at that corner. I love going into into Starbucks over there and grabbing my coffee, and it does back up. It does become a problem for their property just to get in and out, and then people trying to get into Walker Brothers on a Saturday morning as well. It gets hectic, right? You throw in all these extra cars and with residents, and it could be an issue. One of the other things that came up when we were looking at the map at the site plan is really, you've got a storage business back in that corner there, and you're going to have people going right through your community, through your neighborhood with a one-way route in and out, right, to get to those storage facilities in that business. So becoming a good business partner with the neighboring business back there to support them. I think are CubeSmart. They're changing over to now. They've had a changeover. So that part of it. For the residents that are in the community here that live in Deer Park, which is the neighboring village, but we want to be good neighbors to them. I am a good reader of body language, and so while they were presenting, if you're thinking right now, oh, did my face say that out loud? It did, because I was watching as they were saying things, at the eye rolls and the things that were happening there. Couple of things that I have to talk about, because for those of you that live in Deer Park, you may not know I'm a school principal. Okay, so when we talk about schools, I have a little bit more understanding about how these things impact schools. He's correct. Lake Zurich schools are not at capacity. They're not near capacity. A number of you had cited our great schools as a concern for a development like this, and it always makes me wonder, what is your concern about adding more kids to our school community? Is it because you're worried about the type of people that will move in? Or is it because you think they're going to be overcrowded? Because if it's an overcrowding issue, that's not an issue. It's not right now. And at the same time, and every time a development or a house gets built, there's an impact fee that goes directly to the school district per child that the school district gets to manage and capitalize taxes on. So there's an opportunity there for the school district to capitalize financially on any develop, whether it's the 9 to 15 homes that they're looking to build off of Manchester or a development like this. So that is all taken care of between the school district, financial impact fees, and the way that things get paid. So that's not really an issue to really worry about, unless you're worried about the type of people that are moving into an apartment community that brings certain types of students, and that would be the concern. Because you always wonder. You wonder when people bring that up, but they don't explain it. Okay, we had that similar situation with our apartments right down the street here about 10 years ago. And I brought that up because a lot of people were worried about, well, what kind of people are going to be renters? Okay, I'm just putting it out there because I want to,
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
not a
This-
debate,
this-
ma'am.
This is not a debate. This is, appreciate your comments, but the
I
board's
just-
turn to talk.
We had this come up, and there were concerns about who was going to be renters. We've had a great rental experience, I think, in that part of the community, if I'm correct, in terms of those apartments filling up, and we haven't had any issues over there with people moving in. And so I'm assuming we're going to have a very similar, because this is a high-quality, high-end product. I'm looking at the communities that have accepted the product. We're looking at St. Charles, we're looking at Deerfield, we're looking at Buffalo Grove, we're looking at neighboring communities that are not too far off of what we have in Lake Zurich in terms of type of community, which tells me that they've done homework and they're specifically choosing certain types of communities to build in. So I think that they've done their homework. It's a very well put together presentation, but I do have some significant density concerns. I have significant concerns about traffic on that corner and the safety, because there are, and Chief, we have a lot of accidents at that intersection, coming in and out of the underpass there, coming in and out of that turn over there. It seems like when we do have accidents on Rand Road, they're typically more concentrated in that area.
The Rand Road corridor in general, because it houses and includes the highest traffic volumes you have in the village.
Right.
The corridor itself has crashes, but June Terrace and Route 12 is not a high crash location.
Okay. That's good to know, because that's one of my concerns is that, and then really just making sure that that we look at that site plan, and the other concern I had is you're selling us on the concept of a mixed use, and I do agree with the residents. It's a lot of residents with one business, essentially. That to me, that's not a mixed use. It's an anchor business to a residential community more so than it is a mixed use. And I'm glad that you connected with the building 1 and 2 with the concern by our retired fireman in the group, Mr. McHale. Am I right? I got it right. There we go. I remember him. So he is correct. Buildings 1 and 2 will not have any safety access, and we really need to make sure that we're going to be able to get fire trucks in and out with a roundabout for all of those buildings and emergency service vehicles to make sure that we can get in there and support all that. And at the same time then, when it snows, which we're in the middle of winter, where is all that snow going to get transported? Because you can't just push it to an end of a block the way you've got a site plan now. It's going to have to be removed physically from the space. There's going to be nowhere to push. There's no end spots in there the way that you've got the road set up to push snow. So where are you going to put the snow when it comes?
So many of these communities were able to push it into the outlying landscape areas adjacent to detention. So that's how we've managed in other locations. There are times,
Which is their backyards where they're worried about flooding.
well, if it's frozen, it's not. It's a volume.
It's the melt off.
But still, the release rate has to remain the same. That's part of the law with drainage. We can increase the flow rate onto adjacent property. That's what the state, the local municipality with the village's engineer, as well as the county will review.
Right.
That's the law.
And I'm just saying, to be a good neighbor, if we're going to be a good neighbor, those are things that we're going to look at with our staff when you go through this process. And our Planning and Zoning Commission, that's what they're going to expect, is that that's going to be addressed. They're not going to allow that they're not going to accept, well, we'll just push it off to the adjacent property and let the runoff happen. Our Planning and Zoning group won't allow that.
Well, I guess I'm saying on-site, there is adjacent landscape space between these basins as they exist now.
Okay.
Additionally, in other instances, we have to haul it off.
Yep, just giving you the full input of what we're looking at there. So that's it. I'll shut up for now and listen for everyone else. Thank you again. I'm not opposed to the concept. I just think there's some significant details that really need to be worked out there to make sure that it's going to be manageable in terms of that traffic flow and the density. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark hit most of my points, so I'm going to just run through them real quick so you can take down the bullet points. But before I get there, I will say that I'm interested in the concept of having some alternative housing options for folks. My children are at the age where they are graduating from college and coming back to the community, and there's not always a ton of opportunities. So, of course, they moved to Colorado. But I will say this. The stormwater management is an issue. It's an issue throughout our entire village. When you look at your plan, if you decide to come back, if you can't address that, that's going to be a significant challenge for you. The storage business was one of the things that, when I first looked at this, that just jumped out to me. You know, they're at the back end, so you've got people. I mean, even if I was a renter, I don't necessarily know that I would appreciate people coming to. I don't know if that's open at 24 hours a day, but I don't know how much I would appreciate the trucks flying by my apartment to fill up the rental areas. So that's something to think about. That intersection, I believe, is a challenge. It's got a unique shape to it. The two businesses that, as close as they are to 12 when that comes out, I don't know if you can refigure that or how you might address that. Years and years ago, my kids went to tutor time. I was in and out of there, mostly in the morning and in the evening. It can be a bit of a challenge to navigate sometimes. You throw in the Walker Brother business in the morning and the Starbucks business pretty much all day, and it could be a challenge. So if I was you, I'd have an ability to address how that might be improved. And then the density is an issue for me. We see a lot of different projects being proposed in our village. I truly appreciate the interest in our village, but at the same time, I think as a village board, me as a trustee specifically, when I'm looking at new opportunities for the village, density is one of the things that I'm putting a strong eye to. I'm sure a number of people on the dais have heard me use the phrase putting 8 pounds of development in a 5-pound bag. If there's a way to reduce, and I understand the business model of it, but I think if there's a way to reduce some of that density, that might go a long way for you moving forward. So those are just my thoughts. I appreciate your interest in the village.
Thank you, Trustee Weeder. Do you mind if I respond to a couple things in terms of where we're tracking?
Sure, go ahead.
So, one of the main considerations is the cost of the underground stormwater. So there's a balancing act between the economics in terms of total unit count and the cost of the infrastructure to address the stormwater concern as a whole. If any changes were made to the theater now, they have to address 2 more inches of rainfall since 1992 and the Lake County requirement. So that's one thing we're looking at. It is a very sensitive pro forma on our end. We've found that as we've gone through our own investment committee review on the 23rd of last month, we have to meet certain hurdles for private equity to do this project, and basically the yield on costs with construction costs are making things very challenging. We're one of the few developers figuring this out right now, so we have an eye to that. If we can strike a balance between creating more impervious cover and unit count and maybe decreasing density slightly, there may be a way to manage that, because we're looking at about $500,000 per acre foot of underground storage versus an above ground pond. So we'll definitely consider that. The other thing on the traffic is we have Javier here with KLOA. The self-storage, I think, probably only generates about roughly 50 trips per day, maybe less. One other thing, we'll need to do a traffic study, but I guess in looking at the ITE manual, the theater use, full use and capacity would generate probably over 2,000 trips. In addition, so we're looking at a balancing act. Historically speaking, this may have generated more traffic than we will, so that'll be something else we'll address. And I think the life safety aspect is something we're considering. IDOT is extremely challenging right now. If the village has dealt with Route 12, they're taking 14 months to review engineering. In Lockport, it took them 14 months to sign a plat without any discretionary review. So it's incredibly challenging. It may be something we need to consider for the longer term because they won't move for new development very quickly. It's been very, very tough on our industry here, so appreciate
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys looking at Lake Zurich. Appreciate the community come out, obviously. You know, we see a lot on social media that comes out. In case you want to change this into one big ice cream shop, let me know, 'cause that might be a good one. But my few questions that I have, you've heard it, June Terrace, that's a tough one. As far as the storage, is there, how do you get into the extra storage space? Is there going to be a right of way through your parking lot to get into there?
There currently is an existing easement that's shared amongst the property owners, so that will remain intact. It'll need to be resurfaced. If you guys have been there, there's potholes everywhere right now. So that basically extends in the current configuration from Route 12, curving around to the west in a straight shot, and they have an entrance and an exit, so that will need to remain. We haven't reached out to those folks yet to understand what they need, but that'll be part of the discussion because they'll need to share in the maintenance of that reciprocal easement.
Got it. As far as the numbers of kids, where did you guys get that percentage from? And
Those are from our portfolio. So every tenant that signs a lease, we have the ages of their children. We track this quarterly. However, our school-age kids, population generation for school-age children is lower than the village's schedule, which I think is based on the Naperville schedule, which is extremely accurate. It's in fact higher than ours, so we will abide by that for the purposes of paying impact fees and so on. It's likely to be higher than the percentage that you see across our communities.
I'm trying to think, would this be, as far as the district boundary, is this Isaac Fox Middle School South and high school, obviously, right? So I have 3 kids in that school. I know I hear about capacity and amount of kids. I mean, it's crowded. I will say that. I'm in the school almost every day. I coach there, so I know what it looks like. I will say it does feel overwhelming, and I know you kind of mentioned, well, it's not our demographic. Well, people come in, they have babies, they're going to have to go somewhere. And with you having studios, and then 1, 2, or 3, ease of moving from a studio to a 3-bedroom apartment, I mean, it's inevitable, right? So as far as the schooling, you know, I'll leave that one alone. I definitely feel like even though there sounds like there's capacity, sometimes it probably doesn't feel like it. As far as the setback, that was a big concern of mine. You know, anything to add? I don't know if you really addressed the setback of really only being in, and I don't know, I apologize, if it is exactly 35 feet off of the property line, but can you guys comment on that one? I don't know if we really discussed that in length.
Yeah, so I think we'll have to address buildings 1 and 2 as we discussed. I can't see the exact dimension on this document, but it's about 35 feet, which is pretty typical for residential development. Usually we see 35-foot setbacks or less, but that is a sensitive area given its adjacency, so it's definitely on our list to modify.
That's really all I got. I appreciate you looking into Lake Zurich. Obviously, at the end of the day, regardless of what goes there, Regal has the right to sell, right? And so whether it's this or something else, they have that right. You can obviously hear and see from the crowd that there is a lot of people that care deeply about this, and I would too if this was going in my backyard. At the end of the day, we appreciate you looking into Lake Zurich. We are excited for 7 Brew Coffee and some different choices. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done. You're never going to please everybody. We know that. I never please my wife. She tells me every night. But at the end of the day, something is going to go here. So just making sure you guys are fully aware of. She's listening to this, and I'm going to be in the doghouse. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'm not going to be lengthy. What I will say is I do have concerns for the density, the stormwater, the traffic, the ingress, the egress. It just is, I drove over there, drove the property. I used to have a storage facility in that area, and so I'm familiar with the pathways. I certainly go to Starbucks enough. But I think your traffic person is going to have a challenge in analyzing ingress and egress opportunities because you're landlocked by a lot of property that can't be used or developed, and IDOT's not going to let you. I looked at the IDOT standards in terms of putting in other lights or anything like that, and you're going to be prohibited on that as well. So it just seems like too much in that particular site in terms of overall people, traffic, ingress, egress. I think it spells out a nightmare for June Terrace. Even if you did a right in, right out earlier on Rand Road, I don't think it would solve the issues. But I look forward to hearing more from you. Your presentation has been very professional and thorough, as much as you can invest in at this juncture. But as it sits now, I'm not highly in favor of what I see. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
William Riley.
Thank you. So first, thank the residents. I know getting up here and speaking in general is nerve-wracking, knowing you're on Facebook and, you know, Roger giving details about his home life. It's hard to deal with. But that being said, thank you for the residents. Also, thank you for the developers. Whether it's $1 million or $80 million, I appreciate the thought about investing in our community. I'd say just overall, I'm in general just opposed to the thought of one of the few open corridors and open land areas that we have running through our community that's probably the most traveled, visible, wouldn't be something that would be leveraged by our whole community. So I'm not in big favor of high density residential, especially in that area. I also agree with former Commissioner Daniger. It is not mixed use. If anything, I'd like to see the opposite. From my perspective, overall it's too high, too tight, and not the right location. For the residents in general, this is even a concern of mine, is that if, let's say tomorrow, everybody wants to go to the theater, we're going to still have traffic issues there. If tomorrow it's sold to a commercial B property, it doesn't go in front of this board, they're going to have traffic issues. So we are going to have to address that, but that's going to have to be in conjunction with the property owners around that. And not a lot of help from IDOT. Outside of that, I think a recommendation maybe going forward is having some kind of collaboration with the school districts. So when we do have potential additive burden into the school district, that we understand what schools they'd be going to, maybe school districts' perception on what is capacity for those individual schools and the overall enrollment numbers in general. I do know that the enrollment numbers don't always tell the true story. Sometimes we were already over-leveraged or there's other requirements, and so former teaching classrooms are now not teaching classrooms. I hear this all the time. My wife's a teacher as well. But I just think further collaboration into future developments would make sense.
Okay, Jake?
I just want to thank everyone, including the developers and then members of the community, for turning out tonight. This is what civic engagement looks like, so this is why Lake Zurich is a robust community, because of your participation here today. And by the same token, developers like you help bring investment here. So I want to thank everybody involved. I think the one thing that stood out to me was, as we were referring to the stormwater issue on the site, I would challenge you to perhaps think a little bit more progressively about stormwater management and look into alternative practices when it comes to the use of bioswales, permeable surfaces. You can see by the sign in front of you, Lake Zurich is a very ecologically concerned community. Having some sort of aspect in that regard that would both help mitigate stormwater management, but would be forward-looking and proactive in that regard, I think would do a lot to assuage some of the concerns on that front. And I know village staff does have some expertise in that, so I would imagine they'd be an asset in that regard. Second, I'm probably the one who is more density friendly on the board, just being on the younger side of the cohort. There needs to be opportunities for people younger than all of us to find housing and find places to build home or to build a family and, you know, involve themselves in a community. But I think the overwhelming consensus is this is perhaps just a little bit too dense. And then I really liked the point Will made in the sense that the current construction of the proposal, this basically is an island unto itself. There might be a business involved that would draw some people in, but it's a single business. It's not a locale for people to come and visit or spend time. If there's any way to augment the proposal in that way to include more draw from the greater community, that'd be great. And then lastly, you know, this is my hobby horse. If there's any way to work with the village to improve walkability or accessibility via other methods other than cars, that's a huge value add. So if you can find a way to incorporate that, that would do a lot to, you know, enhancing the proposal. But again, thank you both, and then thank you everyone in the audience.
Okay.
May I ask a question of the board? So
Sure.
we're talking a lot about density. What is the village precedent in terms of densities and the, you know, the units per acre, the current apartments that are located here kind of in the town center? I mean, is that a good example of density, or?
I would say the density too is also by location. I mean, think about where you're putting it. There's no sidewalks. There's going to be kids there. There's not a park. There's not a sidewalk. There's not accessibility. My kids ride their bikes all over the place. I can't imagine the kids trying to ride their bikes from there over to Costco or over to Walmart, et cetera. It's going to happen. It's going to create more issues from that perspective. So one, just the folks who live there and the density and the location. The location is more of a concern of mine from the density perspective. But I don't know where else in the community you'd be able to put that much amount of density in. That being said, it's the location. Like former Commissioner Daniger said, the community is asking for, you know, entertainment at a family age entertainment and restaurants, and for that being one of the main visible, accessible areas in our community off of one of the two highways running through it. I just think putting high density housing there is not really the best suit.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. Go.
No, go ahead.
No. I don't have anything further to add. I agree with pretty much everything all of the trustees have said. I would ask, in addition to what they said, that you pay particular attention to the buffering between our Deer Park neighbors and this project. Because we've been able to demand better buffering between the residential and business community in many areas in Lake Zurich. And you're right on Route 12, right on Route 12. I don't know what the answer to that property is. Nobody here has given us an answer on what should go in there if Regal sells it, right? I don't know who the other people are who are interested in the property, but I'm guessing that they would be similar people to you who are interested in a mixed-use property. So it's going to get developed one way or the other, and we fight this on 12 and 22 every time a development is proposed up against residential. So you need to be aware of that. So if there was no Deer Park residents behind us, there'd be nobody in this audience based on what's around that that property. So. That's it for me. So, again, this is a non-voting item. We've given you the community's input, we've given you our input, and it's up to you now to decide what you want to do and move forward. And then in working with staff, I'm sure you'll come to some conclusion. So thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Thanks to the audience for their comment tonight. This is step one of this project. So there'll be a long working relationship with the village, with Sarosh's staff. If you have any more input, get it to Sarosh. This will be possibly go into the Planning and Zoning Commission, where you'll have another opportunity to say almost the same things, because that's what happens. And then it comes to the board. Who knows when it'll come to fruition? Do you have a time frame?
Yeah, so as I mentioned with Ricky here, with Regal, we're on a pretty short leash, meaning that, any bankrupt retailer, Sears included, when we bought the property from them for the Marianos, we're on a 6-7 month time frame to some extent. So
I don't know what that means.
in terms of pursuing permitting and approvals
Okay.
to close.
Well, you're not gonna put a retail space in there. The way I'm seeing, Freddy's is closing, and they're closing stores all over the area. Party City is closing stores all over the country. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of demand for strip malls anymore, right?
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is this seller is very demanding. And like Transformco or Sears, when we bought land from them, they're in a bankruptcy situation, so they need to see us execute and work on this quickly. So we're planning on moving through the process from here. We'll have to reiterate our site plan based on the commentary, which is all very helpful. But essentially we're looking at a time frame towards June or July, at which point we'd want to be able to submit permits to the IEPA for water and sewer permits. So
Okay.
from there, it'd be a 12-month time frame to first buildings like our other communities.
Okey-doke. Well, thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is trustee reports. Do we have any trustee reports tonight from anybody?
I just wanted to,
Mark?
if I can comment, the mayor alluded to how Freddy's is closing, Party City is bankrupt and they're closing and things like that. If you remember back when I first came on the board, some of you may have been very young. I used to talk about, just to throw back the age thing at that end of the dais. I talked about 10 years ago when I first came on the board. We're in a changing economic environment, and Lake Zurich is strategically placed because when we were attempting to revitalize or build and things like that, and people want to see us look like Deer Park. They want to see us look like some of these other communities with your retail base. You have to be very careful and I know the developers are well aware of this because of the online ordering environment in which we're in now. People buy most of their goods like that online. They may go to a store to try something on, but I'm going to go home and order it because I can probably find it cheaper somewhere. So brick and mortar stores are closing. Asking for a lot of mixed use, and I understand asking for a ton of mixed uses is a challenge because you're not making your money on the retail space, you're making your money on the housing on the other end, and I understand that part of it. So we have to be very careful when we say, well, that should only be a retail. It's zoned for for retail or business. It needs to stay zoned that way. Not necessarily anymore, because you're not building brick and mortar stores anymore. You're not building those establishments, and even family-friendly type of places for entertainment. If you don't go there once a week, they're not going to stay open. You can't rely on the rest of the community to go and spend their dollars to keep it open. So these, and you need entrepreneurs willing to put their money out, risking their own money to open these businesses and these concepts. So we can ask and demand for those things, but the reality is the market doesn't have them. To be honest with you, I'm surprised Bolero is still open because we don't see a lot of cars go. People don't go bowling like they used to, right? So I mean, the marketplace has changed, and I know for people that are on the wrong side of 50, like I am, it's a different world than we grew up in terms of that, and so. Those are things we need to be aware of as we go out and we solicit businesses and we work to build a viable, strong community. What sets us apart from a community like Deer Park with all of their retail, those stores are all cyclical in terms of the economic cycle. We have 2 Jewel stores, right? Those are not cyclical environments. You always will need your groceries. We have Target. People will always go to Target mostly. Walmart. People will always go to Walmart to shop no matter how good or bad the economy is, right? Those are more economic proof types of businesses than you see with the high-end retail and things like that over on just a further down the road. So when we look at the types of businesses that we have some open vacancies in the community for businesses to still go into, rental properties for people, companies to go into, and our community has done a nice job of filling those spaces. But we always need to be aware of that balance and know that there isn't a huge demand for new retail space because new retail space is expensive. And companies don't want to put that risk out there to go into them because we're shifting the landscape. The landscape is shifting in terms of the internet, the way people are purchasing online and all of the e-commerce that's out there. And so we have to be careful in terms of what we ask for and how we ask for it, because it may not be there for the businesses. Go to downtown Algonquin, where they, over by the river there, they built all that, what was supposed to be mixed-use housing, right? The lower level of those buildings there are empty. They're empty. There's no business in those. It's all, the housing is upstairs. People are living in the units, but nobody's filled the businesses on the first floor. So those are things to think about when we ask for certain things, knowing that we need a balance, but we've got to scale back the expectations, because we know that those are going to be money losers for the people that are putting the money out there. And if you've got a great idea and you want to put it out there, pony up your money and go and build something, please. Thank you for listening.
Okay, any staff reports tonight? Nope. Okay, then that concludes our business for tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved, Whiter.
And a second, please.
Second, Euchre.
Clerk Johnson, please call the roll.
Trustee Riley.
Aye.
Trustee Spicone.
Aye.
Trustee Chagru.
Aye.
Trustee Whiter.
Aye.
Trustee Euchre.
Aye.
Trustee Marks.
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
carries.
Thank you. We
Meeting
are adjourned.
adjourns
Thank you.
at